Welcome to the GTN show. This week, we have an especially interesting story from you that's developing in the tri industry. Now, we're not sure whether the story has completely run its course or whether it is still developing, but either way, we think it's going to raise some eyebrows. And we have experienced tri journalist Tim Hemming joining us to help explain it all.
Yeah, but in addition to all that drama, we also have Jan Frodeno trying his hand at an ultra marathon. We have a very exciting weekend of racing to catch up on, plus some Kona 2026 qualifiers from Chattanooga. Right, before we get into our big topic of this week, let's rattle through a few things in the news, in triathlon and various other bits. So first off, Jan Frodeno trying his hand at ultra marathons.
Yeah, and doing pretty well at it. This obviously following on from that story where he was doing a UTMB event and then wasn't doing a UTMB event. He has now done a UTMB event.
Well, he was going to do the World Champs, which you have to qualify for, get like a stones and then enter a ballot. And he, obviously being Jan Frodeno, they kind of said, well, you can do it. And then there's a bit of a backlash.
Which we thought was fair enough, but apparently people out there thought that wasn't fair, so he decided to do it the proper way and qualify properly. So he's gone and done the Nice 54K race, UTMB race this past weekend, and impressively 15th out of 1,378 men on there.
And won his age group, the 40 to 44 category. Very good going.
Impressive.
Doing quite well at his trail and ultra running.
5 hours, 27 minutes for 54 Ks with 2,500 metres of climbing. It's a solid effort.
Yeah, good going to them. All right, moving on. Spencer Matthews from Made in Chelsea. I had to just check.
No idea who that is.
I can never remember. It's like Towie, the only way is Essex, and I think he's from Made
Mark's
in Chelsea.
playing dumb now. He knows exactly who he is. He follows him on social media.
He has got a big following. I will be honest, I don't follow him, but I probably should, because what he's about to try and undertake is pretty big.
Yeah.
So he is going after what is called the Project 7. He's trying to do 7 full distance, iron distance triathlons in 7 continents, and the ambition is to do it within 23 days.
Yeah, that's quite impressive. We don't know anything about the logistics of this. Particularly, obviously, of interest is how he does the Antarctic iron distance event, particularly the swimming in the Antarctic iron distance. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on this. It is all for a good cause, though. It is supporting James Place, which is a charity that works in preventing male suicide in the UK, offers free life-saving therapy to men in suicidal crisis. So it is all for a good cause, and we wish him well on it, but we do want to hear some more details.
Yeah. I don't actually know when it's starting either.
No, as I said, more details. Apparently the record currently stands at 4 years to get 7 iron distances in 7 continents.
Let's hope he doesn't drag it out over 4 years.
23 days is a lot quicker.
Right, moving on. Very different now. I spotted this just a couple of days ago. Remco Evenepoel's TT bike ahead of the World Champs, and oh my, what a bike. Yeah. I mean, there's many cool things on this bike, and a lot of unreleased prototype parts, tyres, wheels. But the bit that really stood out to me was the aero bars. Look at these. So these are the specialised S-Works aero bars, custom made for him. It's just aesthetically just so beautiful. Look at it.
Does look good. We'll wait for the trickle down tech that comes from the top of the Pro Peloton. Also in the news, Ben Hoffman is going to do the Cape Epic again. You might remember he did it a few years ago with Seb Keenley for the Ironman Foundation. And he's going to do it again next year for the Ironman Foundation, this time partnering up with Dr. Tommy Martin. I didn't actually know who Dr. Tommy Martin is. Apparently he's got like 4 million followers. He's a pediatrician, works full-time, like 90-hour weeks, but also does some Ironmans, a bit of an influencer, and they're obviously doing it for the Ironman Foundation to raise money and for bikes and support for children in South Africa through the Ironman Foundation. And apparently Dr. Tommy Martin has never ridden a mountain bike before.
Oh, wow.
Signed up for the Cape Epic. 8 days of pretty hectic mountain biking in South Africa in March. So he's going to be working on his mountain bike skills.
All right. Okay, well, yeah, he's got some time, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, and a couple of weeks ago, we announced our Alltricks competition. So Alltricks being the online bike run outdoor retailer who are literally just launching their UK site, and we had a £700 voucher to give away, and we have our winner.
Yeah, the winner is, drumroll please, Matthias Meyer. Congratulations, you got a spending spree coming your way on the Alltricks website. You buy all your triathlon bike, whatever gear I guess you want for winter.
That's a pretty cool prize, isn't it?
Yeah, £700 to spend whatever you want. Congratulations to him.
Well, I think it's probably now time for us to move on to our big topic of this week. So with that, I'm going to step out and leave you with James and Tim.
Now, they say imitation is the best form of flattery, but is it possible to create a bespoke training program? And if you do, can you protect it from someone copying it? This is at the heart of a brewing story involving a brand you've all heard of. And Tim Hemming joins us today to share this story.
Thanks, James. Let's dive right in. In March this year, Ironman was sent a Digital Millennium Copyright Act takedown notice from swim coaching company SwimSmooth, alleging that the content used in Ironman University, content that was provided by Tridot, made unauthorised use of SwimSmooth's intellectual property. We asked Paul Newsom, founder and CEO of SwimSmooth, for an explanation.
One of our certified coaches, while undertaking the Ironman U course, recognised SwimSmooth's intellectual property, specifically our swim types framework, appearing within the course content under the name Swim Form Analysis, with no attribution to the original source or ownership of that IP. Swim Types is a complete coaching analysis tool and training methodology that I created in 2008, published online in 2010, and featured in our 2012 book, Swim Smooth, the Complete Coaching System for Swimmers and Triathletes, published by Wiley & Sons. It has been formally licensed to British Triathlon, World Triathlon, and our Swim Smooth certified coaches worldwide. Swim Types also continues to be utilized within our Swim Smooth Guru coaching platform, which incorporates algorithms we developed for automatic swim type detection and is now tied to our patented Stroke Insights feature. Tridot has never been licensed to use swim types, nor any of our coaching education methodology. Evidence from within Ironman U showed coaches describing swim form analysis with terminology, categories, questionnaires, speed ranges, and correction processes that were identical to those found in swim types, but without attribution. This raised a serious concern as SwimSmooth's intellectual property is protected and licensed to specific organisations and our coaches only. Following this, I issued a cease and desist to Tridot and spoke directly to Jeff Boer, owner and CEO of Tridot. He denied any infringement and claimed parallel development of a similar system. However, in 2014, he had publicly acknowledged Swim Types as our creation and incorrectly claimed a partnership with SwimSmooth. In a public email at the time, Jeff wrote, Paul and his team at SwimSmooth developed the Swim Type system after reviewing more than 5,200 video analysis files. 5,200. Seriously, that's a lot of data. Paul's done with swim technique improvement analysis what Tridot's done with triathlon training. Let the data drive the process, not guesswork or theory. That's why I love what Paul's done, and I am able to leverage his team's work for your benefit. At that time, quote ends, at that time, I immediately wrote to Jeff to confirm that no such permission or partnership existed and to make it clear that he did not have the right to leverage our work in this way. He assured me that it would be removed. As Tridot's content was hosted behind a password-protected paywall, I had to take his assurance at face value. In February 2025, when this issue arose again, I once more raised this directly. I asked for attribution within the Ironman U course. This was refused, and the naming conventions nomenclature were deliberately and conspicuously altered for a third time in an attempt to circumvent SwimSmooth's original copyright terminology, but steadfastly replicating all substantive elements of our swim type system. On the 17th of March 2025, I therefore issued a formal DMCA notice to Ironman. Ironman's legal team was supportive of our position and engaged with us constructively, though they noted that the content in question was hosted on Tridot servers and could not be removed directly by Ironman.
Since then, of course, the Ironman-Tridot relationship has ended. And so I suppose for Ironman, this case is pretty much resolved.
Yes, from Ironman's perspective. But this was never really about Ironman. The Ironman University had outsourced their coaching to Tridot, and as Paul says, it was hosted on Tridot servers, so Ironman couldn't do anything about it, even if they wanted to. Also, Tridot CEO Jeff Boer saw the situation very differently to Newsom.
We don't use and have never used any of SwimSmooth's intellectual property. There's nothing even similar in anything that's Ironman U related. We actually don't believe in that approach. From what I understand, and the allegations are not from an attorney, it's just from them, at SwimSmooth, and it's highly defamatory, actually. SwimSmooth, they're saying that our the way that we categorize swimmers in different groups based on their characteristics is similar to theirs. We don't do that at all whatsoever in Tridot Pool School or the Ironman U course or curriculum. But in our app, when we can't get face-to-face with an athlete, that's all you can do. You can try to characterize them in the software and give them programming or drills that are specific to their flaws. That's the only thing you can do. That's the best you can do. Swimming and categorizing swimmers was around long before SwimSmooth came around. They didn't invent swim stroke characteristics. They observed them like all the other coaches do. Athletes will muscle their way through the water. They may glide too much. They may swing their arms. There's just a handful of things they do. Most coaches don't emphasize those different categories. They just work with athletes one-on-one and give them correctives. SwimSmooth chose to make that categorization central to their brand and have colorful names for the different personas, and that's super, and that's fine, and no problem there. I'd equate it to maybe a run coach who's looking at athletes and saying, hey, athletes will have a mid-foot strike, a heel strike, or toe strike, and I'm going to provide different drills based on how your foot strikes the ground. And hey, let's actually come up with a name. We're the foot strike method, and all that's great. But then when you get to say, okay, now no one else in the world can use the foot strike to provide programming or even talk about characterizations. I mean, there's only so many ways you can characterize swimmers, and that's just part of swimming. That's not intellectual property at all. So
this really comes down to an intellectual property debate. Does SwimSmooth own the ideas and concepts? Have Tridot copied them? And if they have, is that even a breach of copyright? We asked an expert in intellectual property, Nick Buckland from UK law firm Lewis Silkin.
The best way to describe intellectual property is you can start from the words itself. So it is a property right over something that the human mind creates. And the way that the law tries to help the general public understand that is it breaks it down into different types of rights. And these rights are rights that people will see every day. The easiest one to explain is a trademark. So everyone walks down the street and sees shop names, logos. You go and you buy sports equipment and you see logos. Anything Adidas, Nike, they're all logos, they're all trademarks, they're all brands. They're incredibly valuable. And the way that they are protected is by way of a trademark. So you've got your trademarks. You've then got your patents. So these patents protect effectively inventions. So anything that a human can invent can be protected by way of a patent. Now you'll get a patent for 20 years. It will cover something such as a mechanism for cooling a swimming pool, for example. How do you keep a swimming pool at the right temperature? There's some technology in that. Now you might not see it when you're using the swimming pool, but it has a function. That function will be protected by way of a patent. Now, a trademark and a patent are both registered IP. So you're effectively putting them on a register. You're telling people what the invention is, what the brand is. People can go and look at it. And if they want to create a trademark, a brand, or if they want to create a new way of keeping a swimming pool at the correct temperature, they're obligated to go and look at those registers. Now, the third type of main IP right is copyright. And that's what we'll talk about today. And the big difference with copyright is you do not have to register it. As soon as you put pen to paper, as soon as I'm talking to you today on video, whatever is created is an IP right that is protected by copyright. So if someone who doesn't have any rights to this video goes and uses this video without permission, they've infringed copyright. Now, in a sense, that's the easiest right to create because you don't have to do anything. You literally put pen to paper, as I say, you record a podcast, you record a video, copyright becomes created. Now, the flip side of that, which will align with what we're about to talk about, is when you're protecting your brand or you're protecting your patent and someone copies that, you can say to someone, here's my Nike swoosh. It's registered as a trademark. You've used that swoosh without permission. You have infringed. The difference with copyright is what's protected by copyright. It has to be original. What is original? It has to be, again, we'll talk about this in the context of what we're going to talk about, but how much detail do you need to put into something to make it protected by copyright? And that's what the parties here are arguing about. And that's why it becomes a very difficult thing to pin down. But that's what you have to do with copyright. You have to make sure that you are crystal clear on what actually is being protected by copyright.
So, is Paul Newsom's Swim Smooth swim type creation protected by copyright?
So copyright, the best way to think about copyright is it's a spectrum. If you have an idea, I'm going to coach someone how to swim, that's not protected. What the law protects is the expression of that idea. So if I take a non-swimming example and I think about a computer code that is produced to minute detail to be able to produce a PDF or to produce Microsoft Word or anything like that, that's all protected by copyright. Now the code is infinitely specific. And if you think about that code, or you think about a book, a book has 500 pages in it. Copyright protects the entirety of that book. I can write a book about a wizard that goes to school. That's an idea. I cannot copy a Harry Potter book word for word. That's the expression of that idea. So if you're talking about a coaching manual or a methodology, the question is, where on that spectrum does it lie? Like I said, if I have an idea of teaching someone how to swim, that's an idea. If I have a methodology or a coaching manual that runs to 1,000 pages and someone takes every single word of those 1,000 pages in the same order, that's the expression of that idea, and that's an infringement.
Buckland spells that out pretty clearly then. All Newsom has to do is show that the same system, in the same way, was used in Tridot. But this gets tricky, especially seen as Tridot has, over the last years, changed names and details of their swim type allocations. We asked Boer about this.
We're just descriptive, and we've changed it recently. We don't want it to be anything like theirs. We want it to be as dissimilar as possible. But a lot of the names, like there was an overglider. Well, it's descriptive. They glide too much, over gliding. But if there's a way to name it, okay, they have, a glider. Let's just name it Easy Glider, something just different, And so we've done that. But we had a name for a while, the one who is currently Steamroller. It used to be Tarzan, someone who, like the old movies of Tarzan swimming through the water muscling. So they didn't use Tarzan. That wasn't theirs, but we did change it just to be more descriptive. But none of them were any proprietary copyrighted name of theirs whatsoever. And, a legitimate letter, you mentioned, a legitimate letter comes from a legitimate IP attorney that can advise them on what property rights are and what that exists. From what I understand, this came directly from Swim Smooth without consultation with attorney or anything else.
So it's Newsom versus Boer, Swim Smooth versus Tridot. If you think your copyright rights have been infringed, you have to first send a cease and desist letter, which Swim Smooth have done. And if that is ignored, your next step is to sue for copyright infringement. So does Swim Smooth have a case here?
Well, there's little point asking Boer or Newsom on this.
No.
So we asked our expert, Buckland.
It's all about the detail. So this what's called a DMCA complaint, which is a US copyright complaint sent to Ironman, gives details of Swim Smooth and talks about what actually Tridot has appropriated from Swim Smooth. Now, the first thing to start with is obviously Swim Smooth puts a lot of stock in 6 types of swimmer. They say, okay, everyone is individual, but what we have done as Swim Smooth is we have made it easier for coaches by saying we think there are 6 different types of swimmer that can guide your coaching. Now, what Tridot have done is they've also used 6 types. So, and they originally used the same names. So they use names such as Arnie, Bambino, Kicktastic. They then later renamed them. So I'm looking at here the DMCA complaint from Swim Smooth. Now they have a really interesting table which sets out, they obviously got the memo on what they need to do for a copyright complaint, because they try here to set out exactly what has been taken. So when you're talking about the different types, they go into detail on the Arnie swim type, and they say, okay, you haven't just taken the idea here. You haven't just said that there's a certain muscular male swimmer with tight shoulders and that's it. They've gone into real detail and said, okay, this is a description of the swimmer. And they've even said, look, the description in Swim Smooth is the swimmer appears to fight the water. There's a pronounced scissor kick. They often tilt their head to breathe. And they've said, okay, when you look at the Tridot, they say exactly the same thing. They put in their description of the Arnie and they use the same name. And they say, an Arnie appears to fight the water, has low sinky legs, has a pronounced scissor kick, often tilts their head to breathe. Now, every time you're looking at this, the way the law looks at it is, where is it on this spectrum? Is it just an idea that there's a certain type of swimmer that appears to fight the water, that has a pronounced scissor kick? Or is it actually crossing the line into taking the expression of that idea? Now, to my mind, the more detail that Swim Smooth can provide, the more likely they are to win this case. Because what it comes down to is, again, is this spectrum. And if they're on the right side of the line, or Tridot are on the wrong side of the line, and they can show that, they will win this case. Now, actually, I think that I'm looking at this DMCA complaint. If Swim Smooth can evidence, so it's one thing putting it in a complaint, this is what Tridot have done. If they have evidence of all of these similarities, they have a very good chance of succeeding. Now, Tridot will say, what we have taken is just an idea. It's not an infringement to say there are 6 different types of swimmer. It's not an infringement to say someone who is muscly will have a pronounced scissor kick. Where I see this at this point, if Swim Smooth can evidence everything that they say has been taken, then I think they've got a good chance of being successful. They're also in their favour are emails. There's one email from 2014 where Tridot say that we've used the Swim Smooth methodology. Now, that could be explained away because they can say, well, we were under misapprehension. There may have been discussions at the time, but it's the sort of thing that doesn't look particularly good to a court if Swim Smooth are saying to the court, look, Tridot have copied what we have created. The same sort of it's the same for the 6 types. Now, I know that this is not the most detailed part of the methodology, but when you present your case, if you're talking about, okay, we came up with this methodology, Swim Smooth, we spent lots of time on this methodology, and then there's an instance where they actually presented the methodology to someone from Tridot, so Tridot had access to that methodology. You then have 6 types against 6 types. You then have the Arnie type that was also called Arnie by Tridot that has these same similarities. Then that could be quite persuasive. I think Tridot will have a little bit of a challenge to say that what they have taken is just an idea, but it all comes down to evidence.
So the ball's in Newsom's court. This has clearly been a long-standing issue for him. But does he pursue legal action or feel he's ruffled Tridot's feathers sufficiently for now and shown to his Swim Smooth licence payers that what he's created still gives value to them and it shouldn't just be pinched by anyone else? Interestingly, Tridot has launched a new and entirely different swim programme, Tridot Pool School, in the past couple of years. And that has no similarities to the Swim Smooth model. But because Tridot is an AI-based platform, how much of the swim type's IP, that's a way of categorising swimmers so they can improve technique without the need for a coach to be on tech the entire time, is already baked in.
Yeah, that's interesting because that is exactly what Swim Smooth claims to create. And it begs the question, what if someone else out there decides that the newer Tridot Pool School teaching techniques, which are rather good too, what would stop them from copying it themselves? And especially with the rise of artificial intelligence, are we just increasingly in a dog-eat-dog world, in the world of triathlon coaching and everything else? Over to our expert one last time.
Do we want Gen AI to be able to access the entirety of Paul Newsom's book so someone can create their own free of charge in 5 seconds, or don't we? Now, for me, I don't want to get too political, but I would say no, because that's someone's hard work. But, that's the existential question that societies are facing at the moment in the face of this rapidly advancing technology. So you need to have that human interaction. And that's why swim coaches watching this, I would say, can rest easy, because Gen AI is not taking away someone's hands-on swim coaching. Like you say, you and I both know that if you want to improve as a swimmer, the best way to do it is to have a hands-on coach, someone who's there on the deck watching you and being able to give you those tips that only someone experienced who is watching you can do. And I think Gen AI has a way to go before it gets there, if it ever does. Now, let's hope it doesn't, because I'd rather have a human telling me what to improve than a robot.
Well, that was all a very interesting discussion. I suspect this may be the last we hear of this particular story. I mean, it is possible, as Nick Buckland says there, that SwimSmooth may have a case here, but it would take dragging it through the courts over probably many years with millions or hundreds of thousands spent on lawyers. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that, even if he wanted to, because all that time would be time taken away from his business and he wouldn't have anything to fight for in the end anyway. And on top of all that, Tridot maintains their innocence, that they haven't done anything wrong. And so it would be a long legal fight, which I just don't think we'll see. I think we've seen the end of this.
Yeah, I agree. But I've got to say, the discussion around AI scraping the internet for all human knowledge really is quite intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah. To be honest, I think both of these discussions are above Mark and I's pay grade, so we don't really have to weigh in on this. And I think it's time to move on with the rest of the show. Okay, now on to your race news from the past weekend. We had Ironman Chattanooga. Lionel Sanders and Sam Long were heading for a showdown, and they both DNS'd, didn't start. So it was left to the rest of the contenders there. Rasmus Svenningsen took the win ahead of Cameron Worth in second, with Trevor Foley in third, and that men's race was pretty tight. There was a bit of yo-yoing going on throughout the run. It did look like Trevor Foley might run his way up to take a commanding lead, and then by about halfway, and then he kind of blew up, went backwards, and then he started catching up again towards the end. So yeah, a bit of a yo-yo. Rasmus Svenningsen kept it kind of consistent to take the win, and he and Cameron Worth take Kona slots for next year, which means Cam Worth next year will be 43 years old when he lines up on the Kona start list.
Whoa. It's good going.
It's impressive.
In the women's race, we had Anna Pappinger taking the win there, and quite an impressive run, sub 3 hour run there, ahead of Jodie Robinson in second and Danielle Fortu in third.
Yep. There was also the XTERRA World Championships this past weekend. The final time, it's in the Italian Dolomites. They've been there for now 4 years. It moves to, I believe, New Mexico in the US in next year, but for the final time they had the world champs in Italy.
Yeah, for a long time it's been in Maui before it came to Italy, so it's been quite exciting to have it over in Europe for this time. But I will say they've had quite a few editions of it being less than ideal conditions.
Not Hawaiian conditions, shall we say.
So this year was no different. Temperatures around 11 degrees Celsius air temperature and 70.4 degrees Celsius in the lake. But the official governing body agreed that it was safe for the race to go ahead and proceed. That said, it did make for some interesting and rather muddy racing.
Which is kind of what you want from an off-road triathlon. Particularly if you're watching, maybe not so much if you're racing.
Yeah, it looked like frustrating racing for many of the elites. They were sort of spending half the time sliding on off-camber slopes. But
pretty cool to watch, though. Yeah, Felix Faricia took the win there and the title, the world champion title, ahead of Jens Sloth Nielsen, with Arthur Series in third.
Very good. In the women's race, it was Loan Duasson to quite a convincing win ahead of Celine Boulin and Barbara Veros taking third.
We should also mention that there was a short track race, World Cup number 8 for the short track, and actually 2 out of 3 of both of those podiums were the same on the men's side. Sullivan Muddar took the win, but Jens Sloth Nielsen was in second and Arthur Series was in third, same as the long course. And on the women's side, Luann Duverson took the win there, with Soleil Ballon again in second, and only the third place was different, with Isla Headley taking third place.
Also quite a cool notable mention, Sullivan Muddar taking the win in the short track, also had his dad racing in the elite race with him.
Josiah
Muddar, who is a previous XTERRA World Champion, I believe, as well. Wow. So yeah, really cool.
That must be the first time that's ever happened in an elite field, the father and son both in the same
pretty cool,
elite field.
Yeah.
I can't can't think of any sport in the world where that would happen.
I need to check, actually, go back through the results and see where he finished, but that was neat, yeah. We also had Ironman 70.3 Augusta this weekend. That was won, again, I'd say rather convincingly by Paula Finlay, Grace Alexander in second, and Lydia Russell in third.
And on the men's side, Jason West ran away with it with a 109 run split ahead of Ari Clow in second and Kevin McDowell in third. And then we also had the WTCS Weihai in China, the penultimate of the WTCS series, the World Championship Series. Beth Potter won her second consecutive WTCS series ahead of Lisa Turch in second, with German Tanja Neubert in third. And that actually closes the gap on Cassandra Burgon on the series standings. In fact, it brings her to exactly the same points of 2,925 points for her and Cassandra. So literally, whoever finishes ahead of the other one, even if they're 30th and 31st in the grand final in Wollongong, will be the winner of the series.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Pretty exciting.
Yeah. In the men's race, it was Max Studer claimed his first WTCS victory, and that was after quite a cool and strategic two-man breakaway on the bike, and then he pushed ahead on the run. Henry Graff took second, and then John Reed in third. And yeah, I've got to say, that's a pretty standout result for Max Studer. Yeah. He was actually the European triathlon champion from Istanbul earlier this year. But yeah, he's never really been up there in the WTCS races, so well done to him.
Impressive, yeah, well done. Now it's time for Try Spy, and we had this image last week, and this one kind of stumped a few of you. Yeah, Martin Haase said Jamie Riddle. Dobster said Rico Bogan. Mads Walsh said Jamie Riddle. The eyebrow is the clue. TTM Capital said that the athlete is Rudy von Berg. Capita Marim said Rico Bogan. And T Peloton said Rico Bogan, sweaty noggin, question mark. Well, the eyebrow was the clue, but it wasn't Jamie Riddle.
I wouldn't have gone for Jamie Riddle, but it's easy for me to say that, having seen the image. So the right answer, as we got from a couple of people, Aaron Hyman and Karen Mirano, it was Yuri Kulin.
It was indeed. This week we have this image. Let us know if you can figure out who that is. Say what?
Okay, we had a video last week introducing and interviewing Sam Askey-Doran, who probably isn't a name that many of you have heard of before, but he did absolutely shatter the Kona swim course record last year. Well, we caught up with him ahead of the Ironman World Championships in Nice this year, where he went on to place third in his age group. Very impressive performance, and hopefully he's going to go pro at some point. Anyway, that aside, in this video, he told us about a set that he did once over Christmas, 200 100-meter reps in one go. Okay?
You can call that a set. Sounds more like an
torture.
Epic challenge than a set.
Well, that too. I mean, a lot of us, or I say a lot of us, many of us have heard of 100 100s where he just like doubled it and just, but anyway. We had a couple of comments under the video, obviously, in regards to this. Heart-shaped box said 6 seconds rest after 1:15 100s FML. Now, actually, it's even better than that, because what he did say is he was hitting 68, so 108 per 100, having just 6 to 7 seconds rest and going off a 1:15 turnaround. It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It is a little bit mind-blowing when I consider what my 100 PB is. Just about a 106 for him to be doing 108s for 200 of them in a row
of such a short rest.
It is mind-blowing.
It really is.
Very impressive. But that's what it takes to swim the fastest swim in history in Kona. Well, I'll never be swimming the fastest swim in history in Kona then.
Well, yeah, if you want to find out a little bit more about Sam Askey-Doran, do check out that video. Really, really lovely chap. It was great to catch up with him. The link, I'll put it below this video, but you can find it on our channel anyway.
Handy biker and runner too,
also,
not just a swimmer.
Yeah. Right, coming up on the channel though this week, so we're getting to the end of the show now, we have got a bike fit with Heather ahead of her Ironman 70.3 World Championships. So we've got it all set up, tuned, and hopefully some little nuggets for you guys to sort of take away from that.
Also coming up this weekend, I headed all the way over to Arizona to the Human Powered Health Lab to get put through my paces and do a whole bunch of physiology tests on myself, including a VO2 max test. And while I was there, I bumped into one of triathlon's OGs, one of the greats, Bob Babbitt. And he also was put through his paces, which makes for a very interesting video coming out this weekend.
And how was your VO2 max?
Not as good as it was a few years ago, but not too bad, not too bad.
Good stuff. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If so, please do get a thumbs up, give it a like, and see you next time.